This is a problem I find pretty often with carburetors, and anytime you got a plate or something that bolts on where there's a gasket involved. I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is a little darker color in here than it is out of here on the ears. That's because it got warped a little bit from drawing down the screws. There's 4 bolts that hold this thing on, and all you need is a flat plate of steel like this I use, and then I lap this thing with a piece of wet or dry sandpaper, auto body paper, whatever on there, and lap it until I can get it shiny all the way across. Some people will use a piece of plate glass for this. If it's thick glass, be alright. If it's very thin, it's not going to stay flat very well. Glass will bend a little bit. Piece of steel like this that's been ground, that's the ideal thing for a surface plate. This has the sandpaper kind of taped on here, it looks like. I don't know how it's stuck on there, but a lot of times you just put a little kerosene on there and the paper will want to stick to it. You get it wet on the back side and the paper sticks to the surface plate, and then you can lap it with a little kerosene on there, and kerosene helps take the chips away, makes it a little bit easier to lap. But now what I'm doing is taking the component parts that I took off the engine, I clean them up, put them in plastic bags such as the oil pump and the kickstarter gear, and get everything separated in little groups, so when I go back to putting it together, I'll know where the parts are, and I just keep them in a basket here. This is a little box that has a clutch in it, I guess, but I'm getting them all sorted out and in bags and cleaned up, ready to reassemble. That kind of helps me find stuff when I go to put it back together again. I had no trouble getting the cases split. Basically, just had to take the couple of these dowel pins out. There was one on each end. Had to drive them through. They're not tapered, they're straight dowels. Needed a good punch. Drove the pins out and give a few wraps. I used just a plastic hammer like this, and kind of tapped on the case a little bit, and they separated, and just pulled with my hands and it split apart pretty easy. Should be ready to disassemble some more stuff. The final shaft on this thing, where the final drive sprocket is, that probably I should have pushed that out and kept it in this side, because I see this gear drop down in here, and the gears are really hefty in this thing for a 250. This thing is really built. It's more like a tractor. I think it's really quite heavily built, this thing. But anyways, just so you can see, looks like there's a lot of swarf and sludge in the bottom of the transmission here. I gotta get that stuff out of there, because that looks pretty gooey. But the bearing is just a roller bearing, so when you take off this right hand side case, everything should stay in the left hand cover, and the right hand cover should be the one that pull off. And I think everything could stay in that one side. Probably could leave the clutch and everything else on there. It wouldn't hurt anything, and it would come apart real easy. So, but I don't think this looks too bad. I'll be checking out the crank. I'll take it down, put it between centers, and check to see what kind of play I have in things. But it doesn't look too bad to me. I think it's probably in pretty good shape, and it doesn't seem like this shifter plate is worn too much. This cam plate, those things sometimes can get wore out, and then they don't want to shift right. But just offhand here, my first look at it, I don't see anything wrong with it, but I'll make a video of it if I find something wrong.